"2010 would be a year of major changes to the Scooby-Doo franchise. Casey Kasem had formally retired from voice acting in 2009, and as such, the role of Shaggy was going to be recast. While there aren't any details publicly available of what went on behind the scenes, the end result was Matthew Lillard being cast as Shaggy's new official voice actor, having played the role to great acclaim in the 2 live-action Scooby-Doo movies. As far as the franchise as a whole went, after 8 years of updating the series to a more modern aesthetic, it was apparently decided it was time to go back to basics again, and this largely fell to animation directors Spike Brandt and Tony Cervone. On the television front, Brandt and Cervone, along with Mitch Watson, developed the next Scooby-Doo series, Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated. While harkening back to the Scooby-Doo Where Are You days, the series created its own continuity and mythology, as well as an ongoing story that played out over 3 years and 52 episodes. Brandt and Cervone were also in charge of the direct-to-video movies. Changes made on TV were reflected here. However, while Mystery Inc. had its own distinctive spin on the character designs, the movies would hew closer to Io Takamoto's original design for the characters. Additionally, the animation would return to a more dark and shadowy color palette as opposed to the bright and flat colors used during the What's New era. The first of these films, Abracadabra-Doo, was released on February 16, 2010, and since Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated premiered on April 5, 2010, this film marks Matthew Lillard's official debut as Shaggy. The movie was directed by Brandt and Cervone and written by longtime Warner Animation writers Alan Burnett and Paul Dini. Dini's wife, professional magician and actress Misty Lee, also co-wrote the script. The film opens with a couple of bird watchers out in the woods at night. Well, admittedly, only the dude seems interested in bird watching.
I thought you liked birds.
Yes, but sometimes there are other things I'd like to see.
Like what?
Like...
Whoa, easy there. There's still kids watching this.
a movie.
Ah, okay. Close call there. Not that it really matters, because the monster for this movie is about to put a damper on the evening.
You know what, Trina? I'd be up for a movie!
From here, we actually go to a new tradition for these movies. Elaborate opening credit sequences utilizing original songs and a different animation style to the movie itself. This is a welcome change from the fairly bland credit sequences from the What's New era. This particular credit sequence also shows the gang solving their latest case, segueing nicely into the opening of the film with the usual bad guy reveal, but it's interrupted when Velma gets a phone call.
Hi, Mom. Can't talk. Exposition time.
Oh yes, another hallmark of this era of the franchise. Self-awareness. As the latest creep in a mask is hauled off by the police, Velma explains what the call was about.
Shaggy, you remember my little sister Madeline?
Yep. Brace yourselves, it's more heretofore unseen relatives coming out of the woodwork for plot convenience. Madeline is attending a school for stage magicians, but things aren't going well as it appears to be menaced by the griffin we saw at the beginning of the movie. As the gang head to the school, we see that despite the retro look of the gang, there's still some modern and snarky technology.
Where'd you get your license? From a hobo?
Oh yeah, that's Dave Attell as the GPS. The school, Merlin Werlin's Academy of Magic, is housed in O'Flannery Manor, an ancient Irish castle that was brought over brick by brick to the United States by its eccentric owner, Lord Seamus O'Flannery, who may have dabbled in black magic. And if you think that's creepy...
When he passed on, Seamus had himself entombed in an island crypt on the nearby lake.
After the GPS tries to get the gang killed a few times, they finally arrive at the school and meet Madeline, voiced by Danica McKellar, who we discover has a crush on Shaggy, much to his chagrin.
Hi, Shaggy.
Hi, Madeline.
After this, we meet the staff, Merlin Werlin, played by James Patrick Stewart, and his former assistant Crystal, played by Crystal Scales. We also meet Marlon, the behind-the-scenes guy, played by Brian Posehn, who seems to be a bit nervous.
It's almost dark. Don't want to be around when you-know-what drops by.
Inside the castle, our suspect pool grows with the housekeeper, Alma Rumblebuns, who is just as warm and inviting as she looks.
This facility allows performing animals only.
The groundskeeper, Amos, doesn't appear all that happy the gang are there, and as we see, that's because he's in the employ of ice cream magnate Calvin Curdles, voiced by Jeffrey Tambor.
Remember when you told me to call if any more students arrive? I saw 4 kids and a dog. 4 kids and a dog, eh? Werlin must be awfully desperate if he's enrolling animals.
Meanwhile, Madeline gives the gang a tour of the castle and a little more backstory.
Legend has it that he even conjured up a griffin to protect it, and housed the monster in that old tower, called the Griffin's Roost.
Speaking of the griffin, when Velma mentions the phone call from their mom, Madeline blows it off saying Mom is being melodramatic. At dinner, the gang noticed something odd about this supposed school.
The guests of honor almost outnumber the students.
And where are the teachers?
While everybody else is eating, Madeline grabs Shaggy, who in turn grabs Scooby, and hauls him off outside where she shows him a sundial that was brought over with the castle. As the full moon shines down, Madeline triggers a device within the sundial that brings up a carving of Seamus O'Flannery summoning the griffin.
Like dig that crazy toothpick.
Shaggy, that's the magic staff he used to summon and control the griffin.
When Shaggy asks about the runes on the carving, Madeline translates it as, "Winged protector, arise and guard this castle." And, of course, that's the cue for the griffin to show up, which leads into a chase that is actually played fairly serious as opposed to the chases we've seen in the last few movies. Back at the castle, the rest of the gang have finished dinner.
I was watching Crystal.
All she did was point.
It's the way she did it, so effortlessly.
I can point too!
The griffin's roar gets their attention, and the gang manage to get Shaggy, Scooby, and Madeline back inside before closing the gates, keeping the griffin out. However, the damage is already done. When word gets out about the griffin's attack, the rest of the students are pulled out of the school, and despite Shaggy and Scooby's hopes, the gang decide to stick around to investigate. And no sooner have the students left than Calvin Curdles shows up with an intent to buy the castle.
I told you, Curdles, I'm not ready to sell.
Really? Not even after your little pest control problem?
My dream is to retool it into my flagship restaurant. Then I'll open more restaurants. Soon I'll have kids all over the world eating my vegetable and variety meat-flavored ice cream cones. But won't the griffin scare away all your customers? Yes.
In an effort to figure out what's going on, the gang decide to enroll at the academy. After a montage of various classes and more of Fred and Daphne's on-again, off-again romance, we find Velma exploring what appears to be an abandoned area of the castle. After discovering an Iron Maiden with trick spikes inside, she hears some classical music playing and finds a light coming from a nearby room. Inside, she finds Daphne.
I'm tired of being fussy old Daphne. From now on, I'm dazzling. Centered, controlled, graceful.
Does this have anything to do with Fred going gaga over Crystal?
No.
Velma laments that she and Madeline don't have much in common. No, you shouldn't believe it either.
Once she grinds onto something, there's no stopping her. She's always overanalyzing every little thing that attracts her attention. There's some pretty residue on the floor. Could be a clue.
I said the movie was self-aware, not necessarily the characters. Anyway, when Daphne has trouble with one of the weight machines, she and Velma try to get it unstuck and wind up opening a secret passage. They follow it to an abandoned storage room, where they find a fairly recent photo album which features photos of a younger Alma, along with another surprise.
That's Mr. Curdles.
They must have been boyfriend and girlfriend. It takes all kinds.
Meanwhile, elsewhere in the castle, the griffin menaces Shaggy and Scooby. Or does it? The lion chases the boys off and they run into another room filled with life-size creepy puppets. Alma is also there and succeeds in scaring the boys even further. They set off a bunch of equipment which attracts the attention of the rest of the gang and the faculty. We also get another unexpected surprise.
That's amazing. Thank you. It's a three-dimensional volumetric display. Think of it as an upgrade on, your traditional hologram. Yes, my big brother's quite the showman.
also discover that Elma really doesn't approve of stage magic and has opinions on how the castle's being used.
The students don't need to learn a lot of hokey Las Vegas illusions. They should learn the real magic of O'Flannery Castle.
Madeline shows up announcing she's found O'Flannery's magic staff, which is apparently in his tomb in a nearby island on the lake. But before they can make any plans, Amos shows up with a warning.
Is when Lord O'Flannery came from Ireland, with him came his clan's banshee.
The gang head off to investigate the tomb, but it appears that maybe Amos was correct to warn them. After Daphne shows off some of her new skills to impress Fred, he just walks through the bushes and immediately falls into a hole which is lined with stone and some monoliths. During some investigation, the gang managed to open a passage which leads into the crypt. They find O'Flannery's coffin and inside, O'Flannery himself, along with the staff. Shaggy retrieves the staff, but of course, the Banshee makes her appearance. The Banshee chases the gang off, but in their panic, they leave the staff behind. Madeline realizes their mistake and heads back to get it with Shaggy and Scooby. After they recover it and meet up with the gang back at the boat, the Banshee in hot pursuit, and... Is Shaggy Jesus? Well, whether he is or not, the gang finally manages to get back to shore and the Banshee vanishes into the lake. Except, no sooner do they get ready to head back, and Madeline puts the moves on Shaggy, the Griffin decides to show up and take its turn to chase the gang. Shaggy tries to use the staff to get it to buzz off, but it doesn't work. Madeline produces some firework balls she put together in class, and the boys start hurling them at the monster. While Fred has to swerve to avoid an oncoming truck, Scooby drops an activated ball in with the rest of them. Naturally, he throws the whole box out to avoid blowing up the gang. They make it back to the castle, but Shaggy and Scooby collide with Amos, dropping the staff again. Shaggy grabs what he thinks is the staff, but turns out to be Amos's pitchfork. Madeline rushes out to get the staff, but... Amos calls Curdles about this turn of events, and the gang gears up to go find Madeline by investigating the Griffin's roost, even though Marlin raises objections.
The Griffin's roost? But it's not safe. The whole place is liable to crash down on your heads.
Everything that's happened has convinced Whirlin that it may be time to shut the school down, and of course, this is where Curdles shows up to take advantage of it.
I'm prepared to take this monster-blighted castle off your hands. I'll even give you a third. No. Make that an eighth of what you paid for.
But before Whirlin can sign, the gang convince him to give them an hour to solve the mystery. They enter the Griffin's roost, and almost immediately Shaggy and Scooby run into the Banshee again. But this time, something strange happens.
What is it? A camera?
I don't think so, Fred.
Before Velma can elaborate, Scooby hears Madeline calling for help and leads the gang further up the tower. As they climb, one of the stairs moves, nearly causing Daphne to fall. But no sooner does Fred help her back up, the Griffin attacks. They make it to the top of the tower, but are blocked from reaching Madeline by a crumbling bridge and the Griffin itself. Shaggy tries to use the staff again, but...
It didn't work! We're done for!
The gang try using the firework bombs again, but that just pisses the Griffin off, who starts tearing up the bridge. The pack with their supplies goes flying, but Scooby manages to catch it. The bridge finally collapses with Shaggy and Scooby on the opposite side, while Fred, Velma, and Daphne are forced to go back the way they came. The Griffin, however, is not so lucky. Fred, Velma, and Daphne go for help, but no sooner do they leave than the Griffin appears over the tower. Madeline starts screaming again, and Scooby guilt-trips Shaggy into helping her. The gate she's trapped behind is locked, but Scooby notices the pattern on the door seems to match patterns on the staff. It turns out to be a key to the gate. Madeline is reunited with the boys, but the Griffin appears, seemingly stuck in the doorway. While Scooby tries to find something in the backpack to help, the Griffin gets loose and comes closer.
We can climb down on these!
They climb out of the window, and Shaggy tries to fend off the Griffin, but it gets mad, grabs their scarf chain, and flies off, dragging them behind. Back in the main hall, Curdles tries to push Whirlin into signing over the castle, but the rest of the gang arrive in time to interrupt the proceedings.
The Griffin's in the old tower!
Meanwhile, Madeline convinces Shaggy to try the staff again.
I totally command you by the powers of Houdini, the Wizard of Oz, and the English kid with the glasses.
Oh to be 2010 again before everything we loved went straight to hell. Surprisingly, this seems to work as the Griffin starts to descend. It doesn't avoid crashing into the walls of the castle in the process, but hey, it's progress. And with the crash comes the solution of the mystery. The blimp crashes to the ground, and with it, the person behind all of this.
Marlin? You?
However, something this elaborate had to have required more than just a single oversized puppet.
I discovered Lord O'Flannery had placed parts of the tower with devices of his own to make superstitious people think a monster lived there. When trespassers entered the tower, they would be driven away by the attacking griffin. I kept the secret to myself and outfitted the worn-out machinery with state-of-the-art equipment.
As for the Banshee, that was a combination of puppets and Marlin's advanced holographic projections, which were further along than he originally claimed. And why was Marlin doing all this?
Because all my life I've been jealous. Jealous of you. While I did all the work, you got all the applause. I finally decided I wanted to create my own magic act. With my puppets and projections, I could become a magic sensation. Why didn't you? Because I needed money to start the act, and the only way I could get it is if you agreed to sell the castle.
As for the staff, rather than controlling the Griffin, it hit the airbag of the blimp, prompting the rapid descent. But we're not done with the revelations yet.
I saw him going in there day and night with loads of strange-looking crates, so I got nosy and peeked.
Yes, and my guess is he told you, Mr. Curdles. That's why you weren't worried about the Griffin. You could even use it to get a cheap price on the castle.
Wow, these girlies are smart.
Oh, shut up.
No need to deny it, Mr. Curdles. Your story about turning the castle into a restaurant never made sense in the first place. You were really buying it for Miss Rumblebuns.
Yeah, I'm not going to go into the backstory here. If you're really curious, you can look it up for yourself. Curdles offers to double his price for the castle, but Marlin begs Whirlin not to do it, feeling remorseful for what he's done. And Whirlin makes his decision.
I think there's time to make amends. Starting with the education of our new apprentice, Madeline Dinkley.
Really?
And so, the newly renamed Whirlin Brothers Academy of Magic reopens with a new sponsor, a new show, and a brand new performer.
How did you do that?
That's my secret, Scarf Boy.
Abracadabra-Doo gets this phase of Scooby movies off to a strong start. There's a new focus on atmosphere and genuine scariness among the usual gags and tropes at play. The mystery is interesting, the Griffin one of the most memorable monsters in a while, and even the solution, while a little unlikely, is unique and creative. Matthew Lillard proves that his casting as Shaggy in the live-action movies wasn't a fluke, and he fits in with the existing actors in the gang flawlessly. Madeline could have easily become an anchor to the story, but she's not overused and adds a whole new dynamic to it, even if that dynamic is more or less being smitten with Shaggy for some inexplicable reason. The only misstep seems to be the casting of Dave Attell as the GPS. In fact, the whole bit with the GPS seems out of place with the rest of the movie, as it has nothing to do with advancing the story, and as a running gag, not very funny. Overall, though, yeah, check this one out. It harkens back to the adventure and creepiness of the Zombie Island era while still making it very much its own thing. Definitely worth your time. And with that, we vanish another of the 30-plus films of Scooby-Doo.
Scooby-Abracadabra-Doo!
Those meddling kids to join the chase. No creep can keep them away.